Midnight strikes in the fog-shrouded streets of 1920s London, where a chilling scream echoes from a locked mansion, and Hercule Poirot uncovers a web of deceit that could shatter the elite. Welcome to The Witching Hour Conspiracy, a Poirot mystery. Grab a cup of tea, take a seat, and immerse yourself in this tale of intrigue. If you're enjoying the story, hit that subscribe button. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's dive in. Chapter 1. The Midnight Summons. In the heart of London's Mayfair district, where gas lamps flickered like wary eyes against the encroaching night, Hercule Poirot adjusted his impeccable moustache in the mirror of his modest yet elegant apartment. It was precisely 11:45 p.m. on a crisp autumn evening in 1925, and Poirot had just settled into his favourite armchair with a tisane of chamomile, anticipating a quiet night of reflection on his latest solved case, the theft of Lady Abernathy's priceless emerald necklace. Little did he know that tranquillity was about to be shattered by the insistent ring of his telephone, a sound that cut through the silence like a knife through silk. The voice on the other end belonged to Captain Arthur Hastings, Poirot's loyal friend and occasional companion in his detective exploits. "Poirot, old chap, you must come at once," Hastings exclaimed, his words tumbling out in a rush of urgency. "It's Lady Evelyn Carlyle. She's been found dead in her study at Carlisle Manor, and the circumstances, well, they're positively eerie. The door was locked from the inside, no signs of forced entry, and yet there's talk of witchcraft and curses. The police are baffled, and Inspector Japp has specifically requested your little grey cells." Poirot's eyes narrowed with that familiar spark of curiosity. Lady Evelyn Carlyle, the wealthy widow of industrial magnate Sir Reginald Carlyle, was no stranger to scandal. Her fortune, built on steel mills and shadowy investments, had made her a fixture in high society, but whispers of her involvement in occult circles had long circulated in the drawing rooms of the elite. Poirot recalled meeting her once at a soirée, where she had spoken passionately about ancient rituals and the witching hour, that mystical time between midnight and 1, when supernatural forces were said to hold sway. Could her death be tied to such superstitions, or was it a clever ruse masking a more earthly motive? Without hesitation, Poirot donned his overcoat and hat, hailing a taxi through the misty streets toward Carlisle Manor, a sprawling Gothic estate on the outskirts of the city. As the cab rattled along, he pondered the details Hastings had hastily provided. Lady Evelyn had been alone in her study, preparing for a midnight séance with a select group of guests who were waiting in the adjacent parlour. At exactly the stroke of 12, a blood-curdling scream pierced the air, followed by a thud. The guests, including her nephew Lord Harold Carlyle, her personal secretary Miss Amelia Thorne, and the enigmatic spiritualist Dr. Victor Lang, rushed to the door, only to find it bolted shut. When they finally broke it down with the help of the butler, Mr. Graves, Lady Evelyn lay slumped over her desk, a ornate dagger embedded in her chest, her eyes wide in eternal shock. No weapon nearby matched the dagger, and the room's only window was sealed tight, overlooking a sheer drop to the gardens below. Upon arrival, Poirot was greeted by the gruff Inspector Japp, whose face was etched with frustration under the manor's towering arches. "Ah, Poirot, thank goodness you're here," Japp grumbled, leading him through the opulent halls adorned with tapestries depicting medieval witches and alchemists. "This one's got the makings of a locked-room mystery straight out of those penny dreadfuls. No footprints in the dew outside, no hidden passages we've found yet, and the guests all swear they were together when it happened. But get this, the dagger is an antique from her collection, engraved with symbols said to ward off evil spirits, and on her desk, a half-written note. The witching hour reveals all betrayals. Poirot examined the scene meticulously, his keen eyes darting over every detail. The study was a treasure trove of the arcane. Shelves lined with dusty tomes on witchcraft, crystal balls glinting under the chandelier, and a pentagram etched faintly into the Persian rug. He noted the position of the body, the absence of struggle marks, and a peculiar scent, faintly herbal, like incense mixed with something metallic. Questioning the suspects briefly, he learned of simmering tensions. Lord Harold stood to inherit the estate, but was drowning in gambling debts. Miss Thorne harboured a secret resentment over unpaid wages, and perhaps a forbidden romance. Dr. Lang, with his piercing gaze and foreign accent, claimed to be a medium, but had a murky past involving fraudulent séances. And even the stoic Mr. Graves admitted to overhearing arguments about a conspiracy to expose family secrets. As the clock ticked toward dawn, Poirot straightened up, tapping his temple. Mon ami Japp, this is no work of ghosts or witches. It is the hand of a human, clever and calculated. But we must delve deeper into the alibis and motives. The witching hour may hold its secrets, but Hercule Poirot will unravel them by morning's light. With suspicions brewing like a storm on the horizon, the stage was set for revelations that would expose lies hidden in plain sight. But what dark alliance lurked among the guests, and how did the impossible murder tie into a greater conspiracy? Chapter 2. Shadows of Secrets. The first rays of dawn crept through the heavy velvet curtains of Carlisle Manor, casting a pale glow over the sombre gathering in the grand parlour. Hercule Poirot stood near a towering marble fireplace, his sharp gaze moving from one suspect to another as the air thickened with unspoken accusations. The guests, still shaken from the night's grim discovery, sat in uneasy silence, their faces betraying flickers of fear, guilt, or defiance. Inspector Japp paced near the door, muttering about the press already circling like vultures outside the gates. Poirot, however, was undeterred, his mind a whirl of calculations as he prepared to probe the tangled web of relationships and motives surrounding Lady Evelyn's death. Poirot began with Lord Harold Carlisle, the late Lady Evelyn's nephew and heir. The young man, barely 30, lounged in a leather armchair, his tailored suit slightly rumpled, a glass of brandy trembling in his hand. His boyish charm was overshadowed by bloodshot eyes and a nervous tic at the corner of his mouth. "Monsieur Carlyle," Poirot said, his voice smooth yet piercing, "you stand to gain a fortune now that your aunt is gone. Yet I hear you have debts that could ruin a man of your station. Did Lady Evelyn know of these troubles?" Harold's face flushed and he stammered. She was going to cut me off, said I was a disgrace. But I'd never harm her. I was in the parlour with the others when it happened. Poirot nodded, noting the tremor in Harold's voice, a sign of truth, or a well-rehearsed lie. Next, Poirot turned to Miss Amelia Thorne, the personal secretary, whose prim demeanour and tightly pinned hair did little to mask her agitation. She clutched a handkerchief, her knuckles white. "Mademoiselle Thorne, you managed Lady Evelyn's affairs. You knew her secrets, no? Perhaps secrets she wished to keep hidden." Amelia's eyes darted to the floor. "I was loyal," she insisted. "She trusted me with everything, her correspondence, her appointments, but she was demanding. And lately, she spoke of exposing someone, though she never said who." Poirot's moustache twitched. The word exposing echoed the cryptic note found on the desk. Dr. Victor Lang, the spiritualist, sat apart, his dark eyes glinting with an almost predatory calm. His black suit and silver cane gave him an air of theatrical mystique, and when Poirot addressed him, he leaned forward with a faint smile. Monsieur le Docteur, you claim to commune with spirits. Did the spirits warn Lady Evelyn of her fate during this séance she planned? Lang's smile widened, but his voice was cool. The spirits are not so precise, Monsieur Poirot. Lady Evelyn sought answers about a betrayal she feared. I only facilitated her connection to the other side. Poirot sensed a dodge. Lang's confidence bordered on arrogance, hinting at secrets he guarded closely. The butler, Mr. Graves, stood rigidly by the door, his weathered face a mask of professionalism. Yet Poirot noticed the faint clench of his jaw when asked about his years of service. Monsieur Graves, you have been with the Carlyle family for decades. You see all, hear all. Did you overhear anything unusual before the tragedy? Graves hesitated, then admitted, there were heated words between Lady Evelyn and Lord Harold 2 nights ago. Something about a missing ledger. She accused him of tampering with her accounts. I thought it mere family squabble. Poirot's eyes gleamed. A missing ledger could point to financial motives far beyond simple debts. As Poirot pieced together these fragments, a new clue emerged. Inspector Japp, rifling through Lady Evelyn's desk earlier, had found a hidden drawer containing a sealed envelope addressed to the one who betrays. Inside was a single sheet, written in Lady Evelyn's elegant hand. At the witching hour, the truth will bind you. The cryptic message sent a chill through the room, and Poirot sensed the guest's unease deepen. Was this note meant for one of them, or someone yet to be revealed? And why was it hidden? As if Lady Evelyn anticipated her own demise. Poirot stepped to the centre of the parlour, his voice commanding attention. Mes amis, each of you holds a piece of this puzzle. A locked room, a dagger with arcane symbols, a note hinting at betrayal. This is no supernatural act, but a crime of human design. I will return after examining the study once more, for the smallest detail may unlock the truth. As he left the parlour, the suspects exchanged wary glances, each wondering who among them might be the betrayer Lady Evelyn feared. The manor seemed to pulse with secrets, and Poirot knew the next hours would bring revelations that could tear apart the fragile facade of this gathering. What hidden truth lay buried in the study's shadows, waiting to be uncovered? Chapter 3. The study's silent clues. The heavy oak door of Lady Evelyn Carlyle's study creaked as Hercule Poirot stepped back into the dimly lit room, where the air still carried the faint tang of that peculiar herbal metallic scent he had noted earlier. Dawn's light filtered through the tall leaded windows, casting jagged shadows across the cluttered desk and the intricate pentagram etched into the rug. The scene of the crime, with its locked door and impossible murder, was a puzzle that demanded the full attention of Poirot's little grey cells. He moved with deliberate precision, his gloved hands hovering over objects as if they might whisper their secrets if he listened closely enough. Inspector Japp lingered near the doorway, scribbling notes, while a young constable stood guard, his face pale from the night's grim events. Poirot began his examination at the desk, where Lady Evelyn's body had been found, now removed to the coroner's care. The ornate dagger, its blade engraved with swirling runes, had been bagged as evidence. But Poirot recalled its weight and craftsmanship. Too heavy for casual use, too specific to be random. He turned his attention to the half-written note. The witching hour reveals all betrayals. The ink was fresh, the pen still uncapped beside it, suggesting Lady Evelyn had been writing moments before her death. But what struck Poirot was the paper itself. Fine vellum, watermarked with a crest he recognized as belonging to an exclusive stationer in Bond Street. Only someone with access to her private stock could have used it, narrowing the field of who might have planted or tampered with such a note. Moving to the bookshelves, Poirot scanned the titles: grimoires on ancient magic, treatises on alchemy, and a worn volume titled Rituals of the Midnight Hour. He pulled it down, noting a bookmark at a chapter discussing blood pacts and their power to bind or curse. A faint pencil mark circled a passage about a ritual requiring a blade consecrated under moonlight, a chilling parallel to the dagger. Was this a clue to Lady Evelyn's obsession with the occult, or a deliberate misdirection by the killer? Poirot tucked the book under his arm, intending to study it later. His gaze fell next on the sealed window, its latch rusted and immovable, confirming no one could have entered or exited that way. Yet, as he leaned closer, he noticed a faint smudge on the sill, a trace of wax, as if a candle had dripped there recently. It was out of place in a room lit by electric chandeliers and gas lamps. Kneeling, he examined the rug and found a tiny burn mark near the pentagram, barely visible unless one looked closely. The scent of incense lingered stronger here, and Poirot's mind raced. Had a ritual been performed, or was this staged to suggest one? Turning to the hidden drawer Japp had discovered, Poirot carefully inspected its mechanism. A clever spring concealed behind a false panel. The envelope inside, addressed to "the one who betrays," was now in police custody. But Poirot recalled its weight and texture. He suspected it had been sealed recently, perhaps that very night. Nearby he found a small brass key, half hidden under a blotter, its purpose unclear. It didn't match the desk or the door, suggesting it unlocked something else in the manor. Perhaps a safe or a secret compartment. As Poirot continued his search, he noticed a faint scratch on the desk's edge, barely a hairline, as if something sharp had grazed it. Running his finger along it, he found it led to a tiny notch in the wood, just wide enough to conceal a thin wire or thread. His heart quickened. This could be evidence of a mechanical trick, a way to deliver the fatal blow without entering the room. He followed the desk's underside, discovering a faint groove leading toward the wall, but it stopped abruptly, as if the device had been removed or never completed. The ingenuity of such a setup pointed to a killer with both patience and precision. Stepping back, Poirot surveyed the room as a whole, his mind assembling the pieces. The locked door, the arcane symbols, the cryptic note, the wax smudge, and now this possible mechanism, all suggested a crime designed to baffle and mislead. Yet the human element was never far from Poirot's thoughts. The suspect's earlier statements echoed in his mind. Lord Harold's debts, Amelia's resentment, Lang's evasiveness, Graves' knowledge of a missing ledger. Each had a reason to wish Lady Evelyn harm, but who had the cunning to orchestrate such an elaborate murder? Inspector Japp interrupted Poirot's reverie. "Found anything, Poirot?" "The coroner says the dagger wound was clean, straight to the heart. Death was instant. No signs of poison or struggle, just that blasted knife." Poirot nodded, his expression inscrutable. "Mon ami, this room speaks, but in whispers. The killer has left clues, perhaps unintentionally, that point to their method and motive. We must now test the alibis against the timeline of that fatal scream." As Poirot prepared to return to the parlour, a sudden thought struck him. He knelt again by the pentagram, noticing a single thread caught in its etched lines, a fine silk, pale blue, matching the sash Miss Amelia Thorne had worn. It was a small detail, but to Poirot it was a beacon in the fog. Had Amelia been in the study earlier than she claimed? Or was this another piece of misdirection? With the manor's secrets growing darker, Poirot knew the next step was to confront the suspects with these findings, watching their reactions to unravel the truth. Chapter 4. Tensions at Twilighters. The late afternoon sun dipped below the horizon, casting Carlisle Manor in a golden haze. Hercule Poirot gathered the suspects back in the grand parlour, where the air buzzed with unspoken tension. The ticking of the grandfather clock echoed like a heartbeat, each second heightening the unease among the group. Poirot stood before the fireplace, his small frame commanding the room, his eyes glinting with the quiet intensity of a predator closing in on its prey. The clues from the study, the wax smudge, the silk thread, the mysterious key, and the hint of a mechanical device swirled in his mind, but he needed to test the human element, to provoke reactions that might betray the guilty. Poirot began with a deliberate pause, letting the silence weigh on the room before addressing Miss Amelia Thorne. "Mademoiselle, a curious detail has emerged. A thread, pale blue, matching your sash, was found caught in the pentagram of the study rug. You claim to have been in the parlour all evening, yet this suggests otherwise. Can you explain?" Amelia's face drained of colour, her fingers twisting the handkerchief into knots. I may have visited the study earlier in the day to deliver papers," she stammered. "Lady Evelyn often worked late. It must have caught then." Her eyes flicked toward Lord Harold, a fleeting glance that Poirot noted with interest. Was she protecting herself or someone else? Turning to Lord Harold, Poirot's tone sharpened. "Monsieur Carlyle, you spoke of a heated argument with your aunt about a missing ledger. Yet Mr. Graves mentioned this ledger contains sensitive financial records. Records that could expose ruinous dealings. Were you perhaps desperate to keep such matters hidden?" Harold's jaw tightened, his brandy glass nearly slipping from his hand. "I told you she was furious, but I didn't touch that ledger. I was in debt, yes, but I was in the parlour when she screamed." His voice cracked, betraying a mix of fear and indignation. But Poirot sensed a thread of truth beneath the bluster. Dr. Victor Lang, ever the enigma, leaned back in his chair, his silver cane tapping rhythmically against the floor. Poirot fixed him with a piercing stare. "Monsieur Lang, your expertise in the occult is well known, yet your past is clouded with accusations of deceit. Lady Evelyn's notes spoke of betrayal. Did she perhaps discover something about your séances that threatened your reputation?" Lang's smile was thin, almost mocking. "Monsieur Poirot, my work is to guide, not to deceive. Lady Evelyn trusted me to lead her séance. If she suspected betrayal, it was not from me." His calm was unshaken, but Poirot detected a guarded edge, as if Lang were playing a deeper game. Mr. Graves, standing near the door, shifted uncomfortably as Poirot addressed him. "Monsieur Graves, as butler, you are the eyes and ears of this manor. You heard arguments, yes, but did you also see someone enter the study before the séance, perhaps carrying a candle or a tool to tamper with the room?" Graves's stoic mask faltered for a moment. "I saw nothing unusual, sir. My duties kept me in the kitchen until the guests arrived. But I did notice Dr. Lang lingering near the study door earlier, though he said he was only admiring the decor." Lang's eyes narrowed at the accusation, a silent challenge passing between the two men. Poirot paced slowly, his hands clasped behind his back, as he revealed another clue. "In the study, I found a small brass key hidden under the blotter. It fits no lock in that room, suggesting it opens something else. A safe, perhaps, or a secret compartment. Does anyone know of such a hiding place?" The room fell silent, but Poirot caught a flicker of recognition in Amelia's eyes before she quickly looked away. Harold coughed nervously, while Lang's cane stopped its tapping, the sudden stillness betraying his interest. Graves remained impassive, but his fingers twitched, as if resisting the urge to speak. To stir the pot further, Poirot shared a calculated half-truth. "The police have found traces of wax on the study's windowsill, suggesting a candle was used, perhaps part of a ritual, or to conceal a more practical purpose. Who among you is familiar with such practices?" Dr. Lang raised an eyebrow, but it was Amelia who spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Lady Evelyn often burned candles during her studies of the occult, but I never saw her use them in the study itself." Her words were too quick, too defensive, and Poirot filed this away for later scrutiny. As the interrogation drew to a close, Poirot noticed a subtle shift in the group's dynamic. Glances exchanged, postures stiffening, as if each suspect feared the others might crack under pressure. He concluded with a measured tone, "Mes amis, the truth is like a shadow. It moves with the light. Tonight, I will consult with Inspector Japp and examine this mysterious key further. But rest assured, the one who struck Lady Evelyn will not escape the light of justice." As the suspects dispersed, their footsteps echoing in the cavernous halls, Poirot lingered by the fireplace, his mind racing. The key, the thread, the wax, all pointed to a carefully orchestrated crime, but the motives remained murky. Was the ledger the key to the conspiracy, or was the occult angle more than a distraction? The manor's secrets were beginning to surface, and Poirot sensed the next revelation would come from an unexpected source. Chapter 5. The Hidden Vault. As twilight deepened over Carlisle Manor, casting long shadows across its ancient stone walls, Hercule Poirot stood alone in the Grand Library, a cavernous room adjacent to the parlour, its shelves groaning under the weight of leather-bound tomes. The small brass key he had found in the study weighed heavily in his pocket, its purpose still a mystery. The earlier interrogations had stirred the pot, revealing cracks in the suspects' facades, but Poirot knew the manor itself held answers yet to be uncovered. With Inspector Japp occupied interviewing the household staff, Poirot seized the moment to search for the lock that matched his key, certain it would lead him closer to the heart of the conspiracy. The library was a labyrinth of knowledge, its air thick with the scent of old paper and polished wood. Poirot's keen eyes scanned the room, noting the portraits of stern Carlisle ancestors glaring down from gilded frames. He began his search methodically, tapping panels and running his fingers along the edges of bookcases for hidden catches. His instincts told him the key belonged to something concealed. A safe, perhaps, or a compartment tied to Lady Evelyn's cryptic note about betrayal. As he moved deeper into the room, he noticed a peculiar painting, a medieval scene of a woman in a hooded cloak, her hands raised over a glowing orb, with a faint inscription in Latin, Veritas in Tenebrae, Truth in Darkness. Poirot paused, his gaze drawn to the painting's heavy frame, which seemed slightly askew. With a gentle push, he felt it shift, revealing a hidden recess in the wall. His pulse quickened as he inserted the brass key into a small, ornate lock embedded in the stone. It turned with a satisfying click, and a narrow panel slid open, exposing a compact vault. Inside lay a leather-bound ledger, its cover embossed with the Carlisle crest, and a bundle of letters tied with a black ribbon. Poirot carefully extracted them, his gloved hands moving with precision to preserve any traces of evidence. The ledger was a revelation. Its pages detailed a series of financial transactions, not for steel mills or investments, but for a shadowy organization called the Order of the Midnight Veil. Payments were listed to individuals with coded initials, HC, ATVL, matching the suspects' names. Large sums had flowed to Dr. Victor Lang for consultations, while Lord Harold received allowances marked for silence. Miss Amelia Thorne's entries were smaller but frequent, labelled administrative services. Most intriguing was a recent note in Lady Evelyn's hand. The order must be exposed before the witching hour claims us all. Poirot's mind raced. This ledger was the missing piece Graves had mentioned. A record of secrets worth killing for. The letters were equally damning. One, written by Lady Evelyn to an unknown recipient, warned, "Your betrayal will not go unpunished. The veil will fall at midnight." Another, in a different hand, was unsigned but threatening. "Cease your inquiries, or the witching hour will be your last." The paper matched the vellum of the study's note, suggesting Lady Evelyn had been corresponding with her killer, or someone who feared her revelations. Poirot tucked the documents into his coat, knowing they were dynamite in a house already primed to explode. As he closed the vault, a faint creak from the library door made him freeze, turning any system. Turning, he saw no one, but the shadows in the hallway shifted slightly, as if someone had retreated quickly. Poirot's instincts told him he was being watched, but he remained calm, locking the vault and slipping the key back into his pocket. Whoever it was, they knew he was close to the truth. Returning to the parlour, Poirot found Inspector Japp waiting, his face grim. "The staff's tight-lipped," Japp said. but the cook mentioned seeing Dr. Lang near the library last night, carrying a small black case. Said he looked nervous. Poirot nodded, his mind connecting Lang's suspicious behaviour with the ledger's payments. Merci, Jap. We must speak with Monsieur Lang again, but first, I must verify a theory. Poirot's thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock. Mr. Graves entered, his expression unreadable. So the guests are growing restless. Lord Harold's demanding to leave, says he has business in London. Poirot's eyes narrowed. No one leaves, Monsieur Graves. Not until the truth is revealed. Graves nodded and withdrew, but Poirot sensed the butler's unease, as if he, too, carried a burden of knowledge. The ledger and letters pointed to a conspiracy far larger than a single murder. A secret society with Lady Evelyn at its centre, betrayed by one of its own. But who? Harold's debts made him desperate. Amelia's loyalty seemed fragile. Lang's motives were murky, and even Graves could be hiding more than he let on. Poirot knew the next confrontation would need to be precise to crack the carefully constructed lies. As he prepared to rejoin the suspects, Poirot felt the weight of the manor's secrets pressing in. The Order of the Midnight Veil was no mere occult fascination. It was a motive for murder, and the key to unlocking it lay in the delicate balance of trust and betrayal among the suspects. The evening promised revelations, and Poirot was ready to shine a light into the darkness. Chapter 6. The veil begins to lift. The grand parlour of Carlisle Manor glowed under the soft flicker of gas lamps as evening settled in, wrapping the room in an uneasy hush. Hercule Poirot stood before the gathered suspects, the weight of the ledger and letters hidden in his coat pressing against his chest like a silent accusation. The air was thick with anticipation, each person's gaze darting between Poirot and one another, as if bracing for a storm about to break. The detective's calm demeanour belied the fire in his mind, where the pieces of the puzzle, Lady Evelyn's murder, the locked room, the Order of the Midnight Veil, were beginning to align. Tonight, he would push the suspects to reveal their truths or betray their lies. Poirot began with Dr. Victor Lang, whose enigmatic presence had grown more unsettling with each revelation. Monsieur Lang, Poirot said, his voice steady but sharp. The cook saw you near the library last night, carrying a black case. The ledger I have found names you as a recipient of substantial sums from Lady Evelyn, marked for consultations. Yet, her note spoke of exposing a betrayal. Were you the one she feared? Lang's eyes darkened, his cane tapping once against the floor. Monsieur Poirot, my consultations were spiritual, not sinister. The case contained my séance tools, nothing more. If Lady Evelyn felt betrayed, it was not by me. His tone was smooth, but Poirot caught a fleeting tightness in his jaw, a crack in his polished facade. Turning to Lord Harold, Poirot's gaze softened, almost pitying. Monsieur Carlyle, the ledger reveals payments to you, labelled for silence. Silence about what? Were you hiding your aunt's secrets? Or your own? Harold's face reddened, his hands clenching into fists. I took money, yes, to cover debts, but silence? That's nonsense. She never asked me to hide anything. I was in the parlour when she died. You know that. His outburst drew a sharp glance from Amelia, who quickly looked away, her lips pressed tight. Poirot noted the exchange, sensing a thread of connection between them, yet to be unravelled. Miss Amelia Thorne was next, her composure fraying under Poirot's scrutiny. Mademoiselle, the ledger lists payments to you for administrative services. Yet you claimed Lady Evelyn was demanding, even unfair. Did these payments come with expectations? Perhaps to conceal the Order's activities? Amelia's eyes widened, her voice barely a whisper. I handled her correspondence, nothing more. The Order, it was her obsession, not mine. She spoke of it as a noble cause, but lately, she feared someone was twisting it against her. Her words trembled, and Poirot sensed truth mixed with evasion. Amelia knew more than she admitted. Mr. Graves stood by the door, his stoic presence almost invisible until Poirot addressed him. Monsieur Graves, you have served this family for decades. The ledger mentions no payments to you, yet your loyalty to Lady Evelyn was absolute. Did you know of the Order of the Midnight Veil? And did you suspect it led to her death? Graves' eyes met Poirot's, steady but heavy with something unspoken. I knew of her interests, sir, but not their full extent. She kept the Order's details from me, though I heard whispers of meetings, coded letters, and late-night visitors. I only served, never pried. His restraint was convincing, but Poirot wondered if loyalty had blinded him or bound him to a darker truth. To stir the tension, Poirot revealed a calculated detail. The letters I found speak of a threat to Lady Evelyn, warning her to cease her inquiries. One was written in her hand, addressed to the one who betrays. It seems she knew her killer, and they were close enough to fear her exposure of the Order. The room grew deathly still. Harold shifted uncomfortably. Amelia's handkerchief twisted tighter. Lang's cane froze mid-tap, and Graves's gaze dropped to the floor. The mention of the Order had struck a nerve, and Poirot knew he was close to a breakthrough. He paced slowly, his voice rising with purpose. Mes amis, the Order of the Midnight Veil is no mere fancy. It is the key to this murder. Lady Evelyn sought to expose a betrayal within its ranks, and one of you acted to silence her. The locked room, the dagger, the note, they are but pieces of a larger design. I will find the truth, and it will not hide in the shadows much longer. As the suspects dispersed, their faces etched with unease, Inspector Japp approached Poirot, his brow furrowed. You're stirring them up, Poirot, but we've got no hard evidence yet. That ledger's damning, but it doesn't prove murder. Poirot smiled faintly. Patience, mon ami. The guilty will betray themselves, for no one can hide from their own conscience forever. Alone in the parlour, Poirot reflected on the night ahead. The Order's secrets were unravelling, but the killer's method remained elusive. The wax smudge, the silk thread, and the hint of a mechanical device suggested a cunning plan, but the motive, greed, fear, or revenge, was still obscured. As the manor's clock chimed, Poirot knew the next clue would come from the Order itself, and he resolved to uncover its purpose before another life was claimed. Chapter 7. Whispers of the Order. The night air in Carlisle Manor grew heavy as Hercule Poirot retreated to the library. The ledger and letters from the hidden vault spread before him on a polished mahogany table. The room's high ceilings and shadowed corners seemed to pulse with the weight of secrets, and the faint chime of the manor's clock marked the approach of midnight, the witching hour. Poirot's mind was alight with the revelations of the Order of the Midnight Veil, a clandestine group that tied Lady Evelyn's death to a deeper conspiracy. The suspect's reactions earlier had confirmed his suspicions. Each was entangled in the Order, but one had wielded the dagger to protect its secrets. Tonight, he would uncover the Order's true purpose, an inch closer to the killer's identity. Poirot began with the ledger, its pages a map of intrigue. Beyond the payments to Lord Harold, Miss Amelia, and Dr. Lang, he found entries for an unnamed guardian, who received substantial sums for safekeeping the veil. The amounts were staggering, suggesting a role of immense responsibility or power. A marginal note in Lady Evelyn's hand read, "The guardian has faltered. The pact is broken." Poirot's moustache twitched. This guardian could be the key to her betrayal, perhaps even her killer. But who among the suspects fit this role? Harold's debts ruled him out as a figure of authority. Amelia's position seemed too subordinate, and Lang's spiritualist facade suggested influence, not guardianship. Could Graves, the ever-present butler, be more than he appeared? The letters offered further clues. One, written in a hurried script, was addressed to Lady Evelyn from someone signing as V. It warned, "The veil's secrets must remain buried, or the witching hour will claim us all." The initial matched Dr. Victor Lang, but the handwriting was unfamiliar, possibly disguised. Another letter, unsigned, referenced a ritual of binding planned for the night of the murder, hinting that Lady Evelyn's séance was more than a spiritual exercise. It was a confrontation. Poirot recalled the wax smudge and burn mark in the study. Perhaps the ritual had begun, only to be interrupted by murder. To test his theory, Poirot sought out the book from the study, Rituals of the Midnight Hour. Flipping to the bookmarked chapter on blood pacts, he found a detailed description of a ceremony where members of a secret order swore loyalty with a consecrated blade, vowing to protect their cause at all costs. Failure to uphold the pact could result in a symbolic execution, a dagger to the heart. The parallel to Lady Evelyn's death was striking. Had she violated the order's rules, or had she threatened to expose its guardian? Poirot's thoughts were interrupted by a soft footfall outside the library door. He slipped the documents into his coat and moved silently to the shadows, peering through a crack in the door. A figure, slight and cloaked in a dark shawl, paused in the hallway, then retreated toward the staircase. The silhouette resembled Miss Amelia Thorne, but the shawl was unfamiliar, suggesting she was hiding her movements. Poirot made a mental note to follow up. Her presence near the library at this hour was no coincidence. Returning to his work, Poirot examined a final clue from the vault. A small, silver medallion engraved with a crescent moon and a single word. Veil. It was tucked inside the ledger, its chain broken as if torn off in haste. He recalled seeing a similar design on Dr. Lang's cane, a subtle emblem that now seemed far from ornamental. Was Lang the guardian or merely a pawn in the Order's game? The medallion's presence in the vault suggested Lady Evelyn had kept it as evidence, perhaps of someone's disloyalty. As midnight struck, Poirot felt the manor's atmosphere shift, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. He decided to confront Dr. Lang alone, suspecting the spiritualist's knowledge of the Order ran deeper than he admitted. Finding Lang in the conservatory, staring at the moonlit gardens, Poirot spoke softly. "Monsieur Lang, the medallion of the veil, does it belong to you?" Lang's hand tightened on his cane, but his voice remained steady. "A trinket, nothing more. Lady Evelyn collected such curiosities." Poirot pressed further. "And the guardian, did she name you as the one who faltered?" Lang's eyes flashed, but he only smiled. "You chase shadows, Monsieur Poirot. The Order is a myth to scare the superstitious." Poirot retreated, unconvinced. Lang's deflection was too practiced, and Amelia's nocturnal wandering suggested she, too, was searching for something, or someone. The Order of the Midnight Veil was no myth. It was a living conspiracy, and Lady Evelyn's death was its consequence. As Poirot returned to the library to secure the evidence, he knew the next hours would demand a bold move to force the killer's hand. Chapter 8. The Trap is Set. The moon hung low over Carlisle Manor, its pale light filtering through the conservatory's glass panes, casting eerie patterns on the tiled floor where Hercule Poirot stood, his silhouette sharp against the night. The silver medallion of the Order of the Midnight Veil glinted in his hand. Its crescent moon emblem, a silent testament to the secrets binding Lady Evelyn's murder to a shadowy conspiracy. The ledger's coded entries, the threatening letters, and the fleeting glimpse of Miss Amelia Thorne's cloaked figure had convinced Poirot that the killer was growing desperate. To catch them, he would need to set a trap, one that played on their fear of exposure. With midnight approaching, the witching hour loomed, and Poirot prepared to turn the manor's own secrets against the guilty. Poirot summoned Inspector Japp to the library, where the air was thick with the scent of old books and the faint echo of the manor's restless energy. "Mon ami," Poirot said, his voice low, "we must stage a revelation. I will announce that I have uncovered the identity of the guardian of the Order, and that the ledger reveals all. The killer will act to protect their secret, and we will be ready." Japp's brow furrowed, but he nodded, trusting Poirot's instincts. "Risky, but I'll have my men stationed discreetly." "Where do you want to do this?" Poirot's eyes gleamed. The study where it began. The witching hour will draw them out. As the clock neared 11, Poirot gathered the suspects in the study, its shelves of occult tomes and the faint outline of the pentagram rug creating an atmosphere charged with dread. Lord Harold Carlyle slouched in a chair, his face flushed from too much brandy, his fingers drumming nervously. Miss Amelia Thorne sat rigidly, her eyes fixed on the floor, the pale blue sash of her dress, a stark reminder of the thread found earlier. Dr. Victor Lang leaned against the desk, his cane's silver handle catching the lamplight, his expression unreadable. Mr. Graves stood by the door, his weathered hands clasped tightly, as if bracing for a storm. Inspector Japp lingered near the window, his presence a subtle reassurance of authority. Poirot began with a theatrical flourish, holding up the silver medallion. Mes amis, the Order of the Midnight Veil is no myth. This medallion, found in a hidden vault, marks its members. The ledger names each of you, Harold, Amelia, Victor, tied to payments for a cause Lady Evelyn sought to expose. She named a guardian, one who betrayed the Order's pact, and her note, "The witching hour reveals all betrayals," was her final warning. I know who this guardian is, and tonight I will name them. The room tensed, eyes darting, breaths held. Poirot watched closely, noting Harold's sudden pallor, Amelia's sharp intake of breath, Lang's tightened grip on his cane, and Graves's subtle step forward, as if to intervene. To heighten the pressure, Poirot paced toward the desk, where he had deliberately left the ledger open to a page listing the guardian's payments. This ledger, he continued, details sums paid to the guardian for safekeeping the veil. Lady Evelyn discovered their disloyalty, and it cost her life. The dagger, the locked room, the ritual, they were a message, meant to silence her before she could act. He paused, letting the words sink in, then added, I have sent a copy of this ledger to Scotland Yard. There is no escape for the guilty. The lie was calculated, and it worked. Amelia's hands trembled, and she blurted, You can't possibly know. I only handled her letters, nothing more. Her outburst drew a sharp look from Lang, who hissed, Quiet, Amelia. Harold jumped to his feet, shouting, This is absurd! I'm no guardian. I barely knew what she was up to. Graves remained silent, but his eyes locked on Poirot. A flicker of something, fear or resolve crossing his face. Poirot's trap was closing, but he needed one final push. Stepping to the centre of the room, he lowered his voice to a conspiratorial whisper. The guardian is here among us, and they know the witching hour approaches. If they wish to confess, now is the time, before the truth is revealed to all. The clock began to chime midnight, its tolls echoing like a judgment. Suddenly, a loud crash came from the hallway. A tray of glassware, deliberately knocked over by Japp's constable as part of the plan to startle the guilty. In the chaos, Poirot saw movement. Lang's cane slipped, revealing a hidden compartment, and a small vial rolled out, its contents shimmering with a metallic sheen, the same scent Poirot had detected in the study. Before anyone could react, Poirot seized the moment. Monsieur Lang, what is this vial? A tool of your séances or something more deadly? Lang's composure cracked, his voice rising. It's nothing, a tonic for my nerves. But Poirot's eyes were on the vial, suspecting it held a clue to the murder's method. Japp moved swiftly, confiscating it as Lang protested. The room erupted in accusations, with Harold pointing at Amelia, who shrank back, and Graves stepping forward as if to restore order. As the suspects were escorted to separate rooms for further questioning, Poirot whispered to Japp, The vial, mon ami, test it at once. It may explain the locked room, and watch Lang closely. He is not what he seems. The trap had worked, exposing cracks in the Order's facade, but the killer's full motive remained just out of reach. The witching hour had passed, but Poirot knew the final revelation was imminent. Chapter 9. The Viper's Sting. The tension in Carlisle Manor crackled like a storm about to break as Hercule Poirot stood in the dimly lit study. The faint chime of the clock, now silent past the witching hour. The vial retrieved from Dr. Victor Lang's cane lay in Inspector Japp's custody, its metallic shimmer hinting at a truth Poirot had long suspected. The murder of Lady Evelyn Carlyle was not just a crime of passion or greed, but one of meticulous design, possibly involving poison or a chemical agent. The Order of the Midnight Veil's secrets were unraveling, and the suspects' reactions to Poirot's trap had exposed their vulnerabilities. Now, with the night deepening, Poirot prepared to confront the evidence and force the killer into the open. Poirot met Japp in the Manor's small drawing room, where a constable had delivered a preliminary report on the vial. "It's a rare compound," Japp said, his voice low. "A paralytic agent, odorless but with a metallic afterscent when exposed to air. The lab says it could incapacitate in seconds, leaving no trace of struggle. Matches that herbal metallic smell you noticed in the study." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Mon ami, this explains the absence of a struggle. Lady Evelyn was struck with the dagger, but perhaps she was already immobilized, unable to resist. The locked room was a stage, and this vial is the key to its trick." Returning to the study, Poirot re-examined the scene with fresh insight. The wax smudge on the windowsill, the burn mark near the pentagram, and the faint groove under the desk suggested a delivery mechanism for the paralytic. He knelt by the desk, tracing the groove again, and noticed a tiny puncture in the wood, barely visible, as if a needle had been inserted. His mind raced. A hidden device, perhaps triggered remotely, could have released the agent, rendering Lady Evelyn helpless before the dagger struck. The killer had planned every detail, using the Order's occult trappings to mask a coldly scientific method. Poirot summoned the suspects back to the parlour, their faces a mix of exhaustion and dread. Lord Harold Carlyle slumped in his chair, his bravado replaced by a haggard look, as if the weight of his debts and the Order's shadow had broken him. Miss Amelia Thorne clutched her handkerchief, her eyes red-rimmed, her earlier composure shattered. Dr. Victor Lang stood apart, his cane now confiscated, his usual smugness replaced by a wary tension. Mr. Graves remained by the door, his stoic facade intact, but his hands betraying a slight tremble. Poirot knew the moment to strike had come. "Monsieur Lang," Poirot began, his voice cutting through the silence. "The vial from your cane contained a paralytic agent, its scent matching that in the study. You claimed it was a tonic, yet it is a tool of murder. Did you use it to immobilize Lady Evelyn before the dagger struck?" Lang's face hardened, but he shook his head. "I am no chemist, Poirot. That vial was a gift from a colleague meant for my nerves. I never used it." His denial was firm, but Poirot caught a glance he shot toward Amelia, a silent plea or warning. Turning to Amelia, Poirot softened his tone. "Mademoiselle Thorne, you were seen near the library last night, cloaked, as if hiding your movements. The thread from your sash places you in the study, and your knowledge of Lady Evelyn's correspondence gave you access to her secrets. Did you tamper with the desk, perhaps setting a trap for your employer?" Amelia's voice broke as she replied, "I swear, I only went to the library to fetch a book she requested. The sash, I don't know how it got there. I cared for her, despite everything." Her tears seemed genuine, but Poirot noted her hesitation, as if guarding a deeper truth. Poirot then addressed Harold. "Monsieur Carlyle, your debts and the ledger's payments suggest you were entangled in the Order's schemes. Did you act to silence your aunt before she could disinherit you?" Harold's voice rose in desperation. "I'm no killer!" "Yes, I took money, but I didn't understand the Order. She was going to cut me off, but I was in the parlour. Ask anyone." His panic was convincing, but Poirot sensed he was still hiding something. Perhaps not murder, but complicity. Finally, Poirot turned to Graves. "Monsieur Graves, you have been loyal, yet you knew of the Order's meetings and the ledger's significance. Did you protect the Guardian's identity, perhaps out of duty?" Graves' eyes met Poirot's, steady but heavy. I served Lady Evelyn faithfully, sir. I knew of the order, but not its inner workings. If I failed to protect her, it is my shame, but I am no murderer." His words carried weight, but Poirot wondered if loyalty had led him to turn a blind eye. Poirot stepped forward, his voice commanding. The killer used the paralytic to ensure Lady Evelyn could not fight back, then staged the locked room to suggest a supernatural act. The Order of the Midnight Veil was their shield, but it will be their downfall. One of you knows the truth, and I am close to proving it. As the suspects exchanged uneasy glances, Japp whispered to Poirot, "We've found a hidden compartment in the study's chandelier. Could hold a device for the paralytic. Needs closer inspection." Poirot nodded, his mind alight with possibilities. The killer's method was clear, but their identity remained elusive. The night was far from over, and Poirot knew the final confrontation would reveal the heart of the conspiracy. Chapter 10. The Truth Unveiled. The grand parlour of Carlisle Manor was bathed in the cold light of dawn, the heavy curtains drawn back to reveal a world awakening outside, while within, the air was thick with the weight of impending revelation. Hercule Poirot stood at the centre of the room, his small frame radiating authority, his eyes sweeping over the suspects gathered before him. Lord Harold Carlisle, Miss Amelia Thorne, Dr. Victor Lang, and Mr. Graves. The ledger, the letters, the silver medallion, the paralytic vial, and the hidden compartment in the chandelier had all pointed to a meticulously planned murder, cloaked in the mystique of the Order of the Midnight Veil. Now, as the clock ticked toward morning, Poirot was ready to unmask the killer and unravel the conspiracy that had claimed Lady Evelyn Carlisle's life. Poirot began, his voice calm but commanding. "Mes amis, the murder of Lady Evelyn was no act of the supernatural, but a crime of human cunning, designed to protect the secrets of the Order of the Midnight Veil. The locked room, the dagger, the note, all were pieces of a puzzle, and now, with the aid of my little grey cells, I have solved it." The suspects shifted uneasily, their faces a gallery of fear, defiance, and resignation. Inspector Japp stood by the door, his men positioned discreetly, ready to act. Poirot turned first to the method, laying out the killer's ingenious plan. The paralytic agent, found in Dr. Lang's cane, was delivered through a device hidden in the study's chandelier. A thin needle, concealed in the fixture, released the agent when triggered, likely by a wire or timer set before the séance. Lady Evelyn, immobilized in seconds, could not resist the dagger that followed. The locked door and sealed window were a ruse, meant to suggest an impossible crime. The wax smudge and burn mark were traces of the device's preparation, and the pentagram rug a distraction to invoke the occult. He paced, holding up the silver medallion. The Order of the Midnight Veil was no mere club. It was a secret society, funding illicit ventures through Lady Evelyn's wealth. The ledger reveals payments to each of you, but one stood above the others, the Guardian, tasked with protecting the Order's secrets. Lady Evelyn, its founder, grew suspicious of betrayal within its ranks. Her note, "The witching hour reveals all betrayals," was a warning to the traitor, the one who killed her to keep the Order's dealings hidden. Poirot's gaze settled on Dr. Victor Lang, whose calm had vanished, replaced by a tense stillness. "Monsieur Lang, you claim to be a spiritualist, but your true role was the Guardian. The medallion matches the emblem on your cane, and the ledger's largest payments went to you, for safekeeping the veil. Lady Evelyn discovered you were siphoning funds for your own gain, falsifying séances to extort her wealth. You used the paralytic, a tool from your dubious past, to silence her before she could expose you at the séance." Lang's face contorted, and he lunged forward, shouting, "Lies! You have no proof!" But Japp's men restrained him, and Poirot continued, unshaken. "The vial's scent matched the study, and the hidden compartment in the chandelier bore traces of your paralytic. You set the device before joining the parlour, ensuring your alibi. The dagger, taken from Lady Evelyn's collection, was a final touch to frame the murder as a ritualistic act. Poirot turned to the others. But you were not alone in your knowledge. Mademoiselle Thorne, your thread in the study and nocturnal wanderings betrayed your complicity. You handled the order's correspondence, knowing of Lang's deceit but fearing to speak, lest your own payments be exposed. Amelia sobbed, nodding. I suspected, but I was afraid. He threatened me. Poirot addressed Lord Harold next. Monsieur Carlyle, your debts tied you to the order, accepting payments for silence. You argued with your aunt, fearing disinheritance, but you lacked the cunning for murder. Harold exhaled, relief mingling with shame. Finally, Poirot faced Mr. Graves. Monsieur Graves, your loyalty blinded you. You knew of the order's meetings but not their full extent, and your silence protected Lang unwittingly. Graves bowed his head, his voice low. I failed her, sir, Poirot concluded, his voice resolute. Dr. Lang, you betrayed the order and Lady Evelyn, killing her to preserve your wealth and power. The witching hour was your stage, but it has revealed your guilt. Lang's defiance crumbled, and he slumped, muttering, She should have stayed silent. Japp signalled his men, and Lang was led away in handcuffs, the medallion clinking against the floor as evidence. As the suspects dispersed, Poirot spoke to Japp. Mon ami, the order is dismantled, its secrets laid bare. Lady Evelyn's justice is served. The manor seemed to sigh, its shadows lighter with the truth unveiled. Poirot stepped into the dawn, his work complete. The witching hour's conspiracy no longer a mystery. If you've enjoyed this tale of intrigue, please like and subscribe to our channel. Your support means the world to us. Stay tuned for more mysteries and comment below with your thoughts on Poirot's triumph.